Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, August the 7th, with the latest update on Tropical Storm Debby. It is now over the open waters of the southwestern Atlantic Ocean, just off the South Carolina coastline. You can kind of see on this latest visible satellite imagery loop the center right in this area, right there at the end of that cursor, right there. There's a little circulation center right there, so it's not far off the coast of South Carolina, but it's barely moving. It should stay over the open water, at least the center of Debby should stay out over the open waters of the western Atlantic for the next several hours. Eventually, it makes a second landfall over South Carolina, probably late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and then it begins its move finally to the north, and it looks like it will do what tropical systems typically do. They start to accelerate as they move to higher and higher latitudes. It looks like, let's say by Friday afternoon, it may slide just to the west of the I-95 corridor region in the mid-Atlantic region. And by the time we get to the latter part of the weekend, it'll certainly be way up to the north and east into Canadian Maritime province region here. So again, here's the latest on location of the center of Debby. Sustained winds up to about 45 miles per hour, should undergo some intensification today, but it will be hard pressed to make it all the way up to Category 1 hurricane status, which requires 75 mile per hour sustained wind. So again, there it is, hardly moving out over the open waters of the Gulf Stream right here. So those waters are very warm this time of year. Well, here's the latest official track as predicted by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. Again, Tropical Storm Debby just off the South Carolina coast right now. It looks like by early tomorrow it makes a second landfall. First landfall was over the Big Bend region of Florida. It looks like a second landfall early tomorrow over the central, maybe northeastern coastline of South Carolina. Then it begins that acceleration. Notice here, as it moves to higher and higher latitudes, it accelerates. It becomes a faster and faster moving system, so that by the time we're into the end of the upcoming weekend, it's all the way out here past Nova Scotia, past Newfoundland. And it looks like it'll slide just to the west of DC, just to the west of the Mid-Atlantic I-95 corridor region during the day on Friday. And that will likely result in some heavy rainfall, maybe some strong thunderstorms, gusty winds, maybe even isolated tornadoes in the Mid-Atlantic region. Let's say from late Thursday night through Friday night. It starts to pull away by early Saturday, so improving weather conditions in the Mid-Atlantic region begin on Saturday morning. Again, the main impact in the Mid-Atlantic region looks to come from late Thursday through Friday night. And isolated tornadoes always on the table when you're at the right side of a accelerating tropical system. So this area right in here certainly can see some isolated tornadoes associated with this as the remnants move just to the west of I-95. Well, let's take a look at last night's 0Z run of the Canadian model. Again, I think it has had a better handle on this tropical situation, so I'll stick with it. It's done a pretty good job, in my opinion, here, and we have much cooler conditions in the Mid-Atlantic region today as compared to yesterday or the day before that or the day before that. Temperatures confined to the 70s, places like Philadelphia, New York City for afternoon highs. A lot of cooler than normal air exists as we begin the day here on Wednesday morning up across Canada and across much of the northern U.S. Now, we'll move forward here and we'll watch as we push into the upcoming weekend. Here is the Friday morning forecast map of 850 millibar temperature anomalies. And at this time, again, that tropical system will be sliding just to the west of DC by midday, early afternoon on Friday, and then accelerate as it moves up to the Canadian Maritime provinces by later in the weekend. Look at this air mass here. But on Friday morning, a large area well below normal temperatures out across the central and northern plains, the upper part of the Midwest, and that drives to the south and east as we push through the weekend. That clearing skies, improving conditions, places like DC, Philadelphia, New York City on Saturday, and we're setting up for very nice weather come Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday across a wide part of the nation, at least the northeastern quadrant of the nation, the northern plains, the Great Lakes, the Midwest, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. Very nice weather looks like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, with comfortable temperatures, comfortable humidity levels. We'll go all the way into the early part of next week. Here we are into Tuesday now, and again, very comfortable temperatures and humidity levels in that stretch from Sunday through Tuesday. Then we get into the day on Wednesday, a week from right now, and we start to lose that cooler than normal air mass off the East Coast. So we start to get a little bit of an influx of warmer, more humid air into much of the eastern half of the nation. This is a week from right now, next Wednesday, August the 14th. But not anything extreme. We don't see any real extreme heat for the foreseeable future across much of the nation. Well, let's wrap up by looking at the surface forecast maps from the Zero-Z Canadian model run. Again, we begin the day here on Wednesday with Tropical Storm Debby off the South Carolina coastline. It's over some very warm waters of the Gulf Stream of the southwestern Atlantic Ocean. So it undergoes a little bit of intensification, but again, with maximum sustained winds right now at 45, it's hard pressed for me to believe that it can reach Category 1 hurricane status, which is 75 mile per hour sustained winds. But look at this millibar reading right here, 997. It does intensify a little bit to 995 by this evening. A lot of rainfall continuing over South Carolina into North Carolina and portions of eastern Georgia as well. Ultimately, once the system passes by, there's going to be some incredible total rainfall amounts in South Carolina, for example. Certainly 10 to 20 inches, and in some spots could be 25, 30 inches, I believe, when it's all said and done. Now, this system makes the next landfall, the second landfall, right here by late tonight, early tomorrow morning, out back over the central coastline of South Carolina. It starts to turn to the northwest and then north. Here we go by early tomorrow morning, and at this time over South Carolina and ready to start that turn to the north. And here we go by tomorrow night, and we'll start to feel the influence here in the Mid-Atlantic region late tomorrow afternoon, especially tomorrow night. Increasing winds out of the east to northeast for the most part. Certainly they can become gusty. Showers, thunderstorms start to develop later on tomorrow, especially tomorrow night, and continue through the day on Friday. Not necessarily going to rain all of the time on Friday, but there can certainly be some heavy rainfall Friday into Friday night. Some strong thunderstorms, gusty winds. This system looks like it'll slide just to the west of I-95. Canadian model has it perhaps a little bit too far to the west. I don't think it'll be quite that far to the west, but nonetheless there'll be some very heavy rainfall in much of the Mid-Atlantic region during the day on Friday going into Friday night. This is the Friday evening forecast map, and still some heavy rainfall at this time moving into eastern Pennsylvania, for example, northern New Jersey, southeastern New York, from the central part of the state early in the day, where a lot of heavy rainfall is likely. Again, the time period for the Mid-Atlantic with this direct impact by the remnants of Tropical Storm Debby late Thursday through Friday night. Then we get into the early part of the weekend. Here we go by Saturday morning. That system accelerating to the north and east. Expect some improving conditions on Saturday morning, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Ultimately, Saturday ends up to be a mostly sunny day. Places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, that frontal system associated with this tropical storm kind of slides off the eastern seaboard and ushers in that cool, comfortable air mass. Here we go by Sunday morning. This whole area right in this part of the nation will be experiencing some very decent temperatures and very decent humidity levels, setting up for a nice stretch of weather, again, from Sunday through Tuesday in that part of the nation. Largely below normal temperatures as we go into that time period. Then we go into the middle part of next week. This is Tuesday and finally Wednesday morning, a week from right now. There is some warming in the eastern part of the nation here, but notice No isobars to speak of. There's not exactly a strong Bermuda high setting up with a long fetch of flow out of the southwest to the northeast. In other words, doesn't look like intense heat is coming back to much of the nation anytime too soon here. So very nice weather for the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic, Midwest, Northeast, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and not going to be followed by intense heat later next week. But for the next 48, 72 hours, tropical storm is still the main story in the eastern part of the U.S. Again, over water right now, makes the second landfall tomorrow morning over South Carolina, then begins its turn to the north, sliding to the west of I-95 in the Mid-Atlantic region during the day on Friday, and then accelerates up to the Canadian Maritime provinces later on in the upcoming weekend. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.